Do is go ahead and start recording and say welcome to you all. I'm very excited that this is our very first Zoom session. Have quite a few scheduled for this semester, and so I'm looking forward to seeing all your faces here pretty much almost every week here for the first couple of weeks, and then we'll kind of space it out a little more over the next few months. So hopefully you all are in the right place. I am Professor Steckel, and I look forward to working with all of you. You will see lots of, hey Mandy, you will see lots of email announcements from me. That's my primary mode of communication, and so just know that I really try my best to connect with you all directly. I know that there are certain challenges that come being a part of an online program. So we have some challenges with having the just the online format and things like that. So if you could just make sure that you stay in contact with me if there's any issues. I don't ever want you all to feel, lost and like you're out there in the ethers not knowing what's going on. So email is always the best way to get in touch with me. And also really take advantage of the groups that you'll be put in, that you already are put in, and we'll hopefully stay connected with your fellow students, your peers, and me over the course of the semester. So I'm going to go ahead and start, jump right into the lecture for this evening. And let's see. Okay, so here we are. And if anybody ever has any problems, I have usually, when I log in at work, I don't have any issues, but sometimes, one time last semester, I had some really serious connection issues and wound up having to stop, but that's only ever happened one time. So I'm hoping that we will be kind of bug-free this weekend or this whole semester and move forward in a good way. So please let me know at any point if you can't hear me or there's something going on, and I'll try to fix it. So this is Social Work 513, Lifespan and Neurophysiologic Development, a Cultural, Ecological, and Transactional Framework. This lecture is posted on your, let's see, what else? Okay. Okay, yes, you can do what you need to do in order to participate. All my folks who are having to mute themselves, and yes, everybody should be muted, and if you need to, minimize whatever you can, as long as you can hear, that should help, and then follow along on your own screen for the lecture. And then all of these lectures will be recorded as we're being recorded now, and will be posted immediately following these live Zoom sessions. But the goal is for each of you to attend every single one for full participation. Okay, so a little bit about me, and I'm going to run through these really quickly. We have limited time together each week, so I'm going to try to kind of narrow our focus. But just know that we will rarely ever get through all of the slides that I have in all of the week's lectures. So anything that we don't cover, during our live session, you are responsible for. So we won't get through all the slides today, but please make sure that you do review those. And really, the extra slides, aside from the kind of course expectations and review, they really are a summary and a regurgitation of the readings. So, but they do kind of provide a helpful summary. So a little bit about me. This is pretty much how to contact me, my office hours, and really pay attention to this, by appointment. I am here to support you. So if you need some additional one-on-one support, we can schedule a phone call or a Zoom meeting at a time that works for you, even if that means the evenings or the weekends sometimes. Try to be good with my boundaries, but I am flexible because I know a lot of you all work full-time and have families and things like that. So I try to be as flexible as I can. If you are in Nashville or ever in the Middle Tennessee area, please do stop by or schedule an appointment to come by in person. If you can't do that, would love to see your face over Zoom at some point this semester. My background, since I didn't meet you all at the online orientation, is I am, what we call a macro social worker. I have worked in policy and administration for many years, and my areas of interest are in children's mental health and in kind of this framework of neuroscience, which includes neurophysiology, epigenetics, adverse childhood experiences, and resilience. It's a framework developed by the Washington State Family Policy Council that I kind of fell in love with, and I love kind of combining all of these things. So I do a little bit of research and writing around and presenting on adverse childhood experiences in particular, and have been the Children's Mental Health Director for the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. So if you're in Tennessee, know that I have been a state employee here for many, many years. And my focus when I was at the state was on, as I said, children's mental health, but it was also really on interagency collaboration. And I worked on what we call system of care work within the mental health field, which is really about leveraging all of the responsibilities across multiple systems like education and child welfare and juvenile justice and health and human services, and getting all of those systems together to work on behalf of one child and one family. So collaboration was a big part of what I do. Same with organizational development and public policy. I do teach this course. I also teach 510 social welfare policy sometimes. And then I will probably have many of you in the spring for social work 539 leadership and management. So if you ever want to chat about any of these topics, feel free to contact me and I will be happy to chat with you. So a little bit about today's agenda. We're pretty much going to focus on just an introduction to the course, why we're here, what this course is about, why is it so intense, and we will review the syllabus and the assignments and make sure that you all have absolutely no questions. It's really important to me that you understand the expectations for the assignments. This would be the first semester that I have the course structured in this way. I try very hard and I'm very focused on continuous quality improvement, and I try to update this course as much as possible because it's just kind of the nature of the new science around epigenetics and brain science. It's always developing. It's a continuous evolution, as you all will see if you don't know already. And so it's important that I update these. And then along with that, I have spent a lot of energy updating the structure and the assignments for this course. So this is going to be the first iteration that I have things kind of structured this way. So I appreciate your patience as I kind of work to update all that and make sure that it really flows seamlessly for you all and that everything makes sense. So please do not hesitate to jump in and ask any questions as we move forward. But that's really what tonight is about, is really kind of just setting the tone and the expectations and make sure that you have all of your questions answered. There is a list, kind of getting into the basics, there's a list of when we will meet in these Zoom sessions in your syllabus. And those dates I do not anticipate changing at any point, so you can go ahead and schedule them from 5:30 to 6:30 at a minimum, preferably 5:30 to 7. So you can go ahead and stay for our office hours. That's really how I plan to do the office hours for the online sections, is immediately following this course. I'll stop recording, and so you can speak freely if you're kind of concerned about that. You won't be recorded, and we can just kind of have sometimes winds up being one-on-one conversation. Sometimes there's 10 of us in there. Hopefully there'll be a lot of us, but it's really up to you. That's really your time that I make myself available to make sure that we stay connected, and you have that, several times during the semester you'll be able to just kind of reach out and ask any kind of questions that you need to. Clarification, just whatever is needed. It's also really important to me that I respond to you in a timely manner when you contact me via email or phone call, preferably email. That's really the fastest way to get in touch with me. I will respond to an email a lot faster than a phone call. So if you need something, please go ahead and email. And just pay attention to these expectations around here. During the week, it's typically just 1 to 2 days for me to get back. Sometimes it's 5 minutes. It just kind of depends, but what's going on that day. But I do try to return those emails really quickly. And then if for some reason I don't respond in about 3, especially 4 days, please make sure that you email me back. Do not take it personally. I am not trying to avoid you or anything like that. It could just be that I missed it, and I want to make sure that I get back to you. So if you don't hear back from me, please just kind of keep emailing until you get a response. But typically that's not an issue. I really try to stay on top of my emails. So a little bit about the teaching methods for this class. It is structured with, lectures, videos. This is a very video intensive course. You may have, I don't know for sure, but it's possible that this course will have more videos than any other class that you take in this program. They are such a welcome addition to this material. I think they really help to kind of underscore the main points and just really help to clarify and just bring a new lens and new perspective to this material that so much is so reliant on journal articles that can be a little bit dense and a little bit dry sometimes. So we do rely a lot on videos. The guest lectures in this course this semester are pretty much focused on the Dr. Combs Orm, who is a mentor and colleague on the Knoxville campus, and she pretty much put this course together in the way that it is designed. I have kind of put my own stamp on it and have made my own modifications to it, but pretty much the core of the course is designed by her and one other person. And I love her lectures on this material, especially for the first several weeks. We don't have her lectures in every single week, so I do try to post additional lectures where I can that are actually recorded if we don't have a live session scheduled. But please go ahead, even if we do have a session scheduled like we do for the first 1, 2, 3 weeks of the course. Yeah, the first 3 weeks through September 25th. We will have live lectures, but in addition to that, I think through, I don't remember off the top of my head, but for several weeks, Dr. Combs Orm's lectures are posted online, and so those are very important for you to review. We will engage in kind of group discussions and just kind of open class discussions while we are live as much as possible, and then your group critical thinking exercise presentations are really your time to shine and your time to showcase all that you have learned and your time to teach the class. What I have found is that we pretty much learn just as much, I think that you all will learn just as much as, if not more, from your fellow classmates around this material than you will from me. And having those additional perspectives that you all have that I do not have, and how you interpret this material and critically think about this material is really exciting to me, is one of the reasons why I love teaching this course so much, is that I get to learn from you all every semester, and you get to learn from each other. My teaching philosophy or kind of overarching method for this course is something that I lovingly borrowed from the nursing field. And if some of you may be familiar with this or have heard this before, but it's a pretty simple method that is really supports active engagement and learning, where you really are in charge. You all are really in charge of how you kind of are able to sort of download and synthesize this material. And that principle is called See One, Do One, Teach One. And how that works in this course, and again, the intention and the goal behind it is that you maximize your learning. It really is a way, this course is very intentionally structured exactly the way that it is. So if something seems kind of out there or maybe not necessary, just know that I thought really hard about asking you to do it, and I thought really hard about including it. So the C1 part of it is that you will participate in lectures, you will view videos, you will complete your required readings. That's all the things that you're kind of, it's a little bit kind of one way. You're kind of absorbing the information through a variety of modalities. The do one, and we will talk about this in more detail in a little bit. The do one is the critical thinking exercises that you will complete weekly. I will ask you to do that weekly, even though you do not turn those in weekly. You will only turn them in one time for a grade. But I want you to do those weekly, because if you can write about this material, especially in a organized and concise way, in approximately 300 words or less, you will know that you really get the gist of this material, and that you will be able to translate it to other practice areas, other classes, and that you will just essentially know that you really know it. If you are able to write about it, that writing piece that you do on your own time, is a really critical part of your opportunity to learn this material in this class and really apply it, again, to real world scenarios. And then the teach one part is where you literally teach the class, and that will happen as the groups are outlined. There are 10 groups in this class, and so some group is going to be teaching the material for every single unit that we have, which I am super excited about. And all of those group lists are posted, and although they have been one last final revision, and I have just posted 5 minutes ago an updated list, so you can find that online now. You shouldn't get confused, because it should say revised, and there's only one up there that says sections 005 and 009. So if you have any questions about that, let me know, and we'll go from there. Okay. Are y'all having issues with hearing me? Can y'all hear me?
Mine got rocky for a second, but I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah.
Mine dropped for like a split second, but after that it was fine.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know.
I can hear you. I'm just muted so I can listen. So.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, so that is the see one, do one, teach one. So you read the material each week, you write about it each week, and then for at least 1 week, or for only 1 week this semester, you will teach the material. And after doing those 3 things, you can pretty much be guaranteed, especially after completing your quizzes, that you will kind of know where you are with your understanding of this material. And I feel pretty confident that it's a pretty good structure. And I look forward to seeing how that works with you all this semester. I also, again, as always, am very open to feedback, and not entirely all, but almost all of the course updates that I do for this course are based on your feedback. So it's very important to me that you stay in communication with me. And if you don't email me during the semester and let me know how things are going, please do fill out that course evaluation at the end. It's very, very critical to let me know how this course is for you and how everything's working. Okay, so moving right along, I want to make sure that we have time to go over everything, so I'll just touch on this. We will potentially go over some controversial topics in this class, and we do routinely discuss things that may be new to you, and it's very important that this is a respectful and safe space for everybody to learn. At the end of the day, this is a learning environment. So I truly believe that there are no stupid questions. I welcome questions. I typically get concerned when there are no questions. And so please know that this is a place where I want you to bring your questions, bring your concerns, if you're frustrated or confounded or, whatever that is that's going on behind the scenes, please bring that to this space in a respectful way, and really engage in the process. This course is something that I really do believe that what you put into it, you will get out. And part of that is, things like active engagement and listening, participating in discussions, and we will have discussions live, but then there's lots of opportunity for you all to involve yourself in online discussions via the discussion board, which those are now posted as of this afternoon, which we'll talk about. So any questions so far? I'm going to start scooting through these slides pretty quickly. No good. Okay. You have probably read about this extensively, but it is my responsibility to remind you that plagiarism is a very, very, very big deal at the University of Tennessee College of Social Work. And we pretty much have a zero tolerance policy. And it's really important that you understand what constitutes plagiarism. And I have included a number of writing resources under the Writing Resources tab and on Canvas. And one of the things I want to draw your attention to that I think that my hope is that it's most helpful, aside from just understanding APA and how to properly cite things, is there is a document online, I forget the exact name of it, but it's under the Writing Resources tab that specifically gives you examples of the difference between directly quoting something, paraphrasing something, and plagiarizing something. So you can kind of see the same sort of material in several different ways. And I really think that reviewing that, if you struggle with this issue at all, or you struggle, well, is that really, if I just change one word, or if I do this, or if I cite it, is that still, plagiarism? That's a great resource. It's very short. It's easy to understand. And so there's a lot of support for you on this. But I just want to reiterate that not knowing the rules or not really fully understanding them, that doesn't really matter. That the expectation is that you do understand them. And if you have any questions, do contact me, contact any of your instructors. The UTK library system has resources for you. There's writing support that you can access through the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. So you do have lots of supports for you, and just make sure that you do not do this. We have policies that oversee this. Also, self-plagiarism is something that is also still plagiarism, and so you're not allowed to use your own original work in another class. It needs to be modified pretty extensively, or you can talk to your instructor about kind of if you've done a bunch of research on a topic like, sex trafficking or homelessness or something like that, and you don't really, and it sort of applies to another class. I know it makes sense to not want to redo all that work, but just make sure that you're not submitting the same work for more than one assignment, because that is still considered plagiarism. But there's ways around that, so just know that too. Okay, so moving along, please let me know if you have any questions moving forward about this. So what is this course about? It is a required foundation course. It is, we do focus on human development and behavior. We lean into, risk and protective factors pretty heavily. And we do talk about, neurophysiologic development across the lifespan. And one note about this I want to make clear is that you all are getting a master's in social work. You are not getting a master's in neuroscience. And so I do not expect the same level of facility over this material, as a social worker, as I'm sure, they would if you were getting your, doctorate in, neuroscience. It's just not the same. It's not the same depth. It's not the same breadth. But we are going to cover as much of it as we possibly can, because it is so relevant to human behavior. And I know that many of you all may come to this material, come to this class, come to this program with a variety of backgrounds, some of which may be even in, biology or biological psychology, or, anything that would kind of put you in this this vein and have lots of background. And that's great. And that's wonderful. And you can support all kinds of, it's going to be exciting for you to work with your peers, but just know that, I expect that there's a pretty wide spectrum of experience that is going to be in this group this semester. So whether you are just now learning what epigenetics is as of reading the syllabus and doing a little Googling, or you've been reading about it on your own for the last 3 years or 5 years, wherever you fall on that spectrum, know that I hope to just kind of level the playing field a little bit as this material specifically is applied to social work. There's many applications of this, including things like marketing and business. But we're going to focus on the social work applications of this. And so if you do want to, if you get really, psyched about something and you really want to kind of do a deeper dive, or you don't feel like the material is challenging enough for you, that is great. No problem. Feel free to contact me, and I will gladly and happily steer you in the direction of more resources. Obviously, the readings are very limited that we're going to cover. So just know if, I'm here to help you out if you feel like you want to do a deeper dive into any of the material across the board. I will help you out as much as I possibly can. We are definitely going to talk about how the environment influences development. That's absolutely key, especially as social workers when we come to this work with an ecological perspective, with a person and environment perspective. That's what makes us social workers. So that's going to be a huge focus of this course. We're also going to talk extensively about the implications for early prevention treatment policies and services and the risk and resilience framework. And pretty much most, not all, but most of the critical thinking exercises that are posted for each week focus on this piece right here, or what are those implications? How are we going to apply this information to these different scenarios? They're all real world scenarios. They're all very realistic social work scenarios. So I hope you all will have a lot of fun with trying to figure out, how does this really work? What is the role of epigenetics and social work practice? And, really kind of, those CTEs each week are there to kind of help you kind of chew on a lot of this stuff and figure out how to apply it. I pretty much said all this, so I'll let you kind of cover this in your own time. But one thing I do want to stress is this last bullet here. This course really will, the intention is that it will prepare you for working in a field, regardless of what state or country you are in, but that it prepares you for working in a field that is constantly evolving. Our policies are evolving, our evidence-based practices are evolving. A lot of times, becoming evidence-based is like the last thing. So there's a lot of those practices that are out there right now that may eventually become evidence-based. So we're just the science that supports our work, the policies that support our work, it's constantly changing, and it's really important to kind of know that going in. Some of you may ask questions about this work that, or this material that I cannot answer. If that's the case, I will tell you. I don't know everything. And so, I just invite you to just stay open, stay curious, and stay grounded in the fact that you are kind of, this is just, again, I don't know how to say this is an evolving field, and it's important that you understand that. A little show and tell that I have for you all today, a little personal story, is that my grandfather was the head of the Rochester State Psychiatric Facility during the 1950s in Rochester, New York, in Western New York. And I have one of his books. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but there it is. And it is Modern Psychiatry, and it was published in 1941. And I like to keep this book around. It's usually on my shelf right in front of my desk, because it is a great reminder to me that we are in an evolving field. Pretty much the book that you all are going to be focused on, that you all will cover a lot in Intro to Psychopathology, is the DSM-5. So you can pretty much say that this 1941 Modern Psychiatry book is, one version of a precursor to the DSM-5, which was published, just a couple of years ago. And there's, lots of different thinkings about the value of the DSM-5, but it certainly is a reality for much of social work practice, especially around third-party reimbursement. So, we have some not so nice histories in the history of our field, especially as it relates to psychology and psychiatry, and especially around research and, human subjects and things like that. And so it's just important to understand that where we are now it's our best thinking. There's some things in this 1941 book that are not very nice, that we would not say terms we would not use now, and diagnoses that no longer exist, that have evolved. And it's just it's a reminder to me, and it's one that I share with you, to just know that the goal of this program and the goal of this class is to help you understand what the best thinking of the time is now, and that a lot of the material that we will cover will form the foundation of where you all will go as individual social workers, and where the field will go as well. Right now, there's not that many practices specifically that you can tie back, with this sort of pretty bow, to things like epigenetics. ACEs, that's changing, but ACEs has a couple of years on it's one study that's been replicated many times, but it's it's kind of a whole different field than working with something as complex as epigenetics. So stay open, stay curious, and I challenge each and every one of you to really view this material through the lens of your own interests. Sometimes that will make things easier. So if you're really interested in child welfare, think about how epigenetics or brain development and policies and practices around those things may play out within the child welfare arena. If you're interested in homelessness, same thing. If you're interested in older adults, same thing. So sometimes that will help this material, resonate a little more. Okay, I'm not going to read these. Just know that for accreditation purposes, we have course competencies that we will cover. All of the material in this course, as well as the assessments, are designed to support your mastery of these competencies. The required text, hopefully you all have this by now because you had 2 chapters due today, but you will have the 6th edition of this text. I am very excited to have the 2018 version of this book. It's leaner than prior editions. It includes a new kind of framework, a new focus that I'm excited about, and that pretty much is the required, not pretty much, it is the required text for this course. And if you have any questions about that, I've received several so far about can I use the 5th edition or can you use the 4th edition? And all I can say is the 6th edition is required. You will have quiz questions that will come directly out of this book. And if you get a previous book, I can't guarantee that those questions are going to line up for you. All of the required reading in this course outside of the text will be available to you on Canvas, including websites and journal articles. I try to make a special reference for you if I post a website or a resource that is just kind of for review and reference. You might see that those words next to a site. Pay attention to that, because that just means I want you to check it out. I want you to know that it's there, but I don't expect you to read every single word on there or be able to recite it. Usually resources like that will not be included on the quizzes. Those are really there just for your reference and your support. The articles that are required pretty much say they are required, and those specific articles are also listed in the syllabus. But all those are available to you on Canvas, so you don't have to go hunting around for them. I also highly recommend that you go ahead and get the latest version of the APA manual. This course does require a lot of effort because of all of the readings, the CTEs that you're expected to do every week, the quizzes, and the group presentation. It does wind up being typically about 12 to 15 hours per week. Again, depending on your process, depending on your background and experience, that may vary. I expect it to vary between students, but that is something that you can go ahead and expect out of this 4-credit-hour course. The weekly expectations are pretty much lined up. You have vocabulary lists that are listed under each unit except for this one, but listed under each unit starting next week, or unit 2. You have your required readings. You have the lectures, so my lectures and Dr. Combs-Orm's for the first several weeks. You have the critical thinking exercises I mentioned, the quizzes, the videos, and always check Canvas and email to see if there's any kind of updates or changes to anything. I don't anticipate any changes to the requirements, but a lot of times I may post kind of a new something. I just got an email from a student about a new article that came out just recently about epigenetics and things like that. So sometimes I'll post those that I get, and you're welcome to share anything you come across with me. And there was something like 3,000 articles published just last year on adverse childhood experiences, so there's no way we can cover all of those, but we do what we can. Okay, I'm going to run through this really quickly, so please stop me if there's any questions. Your grade in this class is based on 3 things. It's based on quizzes, your 1 CTE, and your 1 group presentation. There are 5 quizzes worth 13% each. Those are posted on a rolling basis and are available to you. My goal is to post them a week, about a week. Sometimes it might be a little less, but my goal is about a week before they are due. I will note that I have just revised the due dates for the quizzes, and I have posted this under a revised course outline just this afternoon on, and it's under the syllabus section of Canvas. But I can tell you in a nutshell what I have done with that revision is I have given you more time. I have not given you less time. I have given you more time. So the quizzes were due on Tuesdays, so we would have class or have a unit due on Monday, and then you would have the group of units in a quiz due the next Tuesday. And I decided that maybe that was a little much, and so I have extended the deadline to. All right, I thought I printed it out. I've extended the deadline to the following Sunday. So basically, for each quiz, you've got about 5 more days. So for example, the first quiz 1, will cover units 1 through 3, and the new revised deadline for that is September 24th. So you've got a couple of more days. But again, I have posted all those revised deadlines for you. All of the deadlines are 11:59 Central Time. So just know that as well. And if you have a problem and you email me at 11:15 at night on the day that the quiz is due, I am most definitely not going to get back to you. So make sure that you plan accordingly. Also, I have the Office of Information Technology, OIT. I have their number on speed dial. They are extremely helpful if you have any kind of technological problems with anything having to do with Canvas or your MyUTK system or anything online, basically at all. They're wonderful, wonderful at their job and extremely supportive. So know that that is there to support you throughout the program. All right, so let me just go forward. I'll pause the instructions and we'll get into the CTEs in just a second. A little bit about the grading values. These are posted here for you. I want you to pay attention. A's are not, A does not mean average. A means exceptional. So this means that you are really way above average. A B plus is above average. A B is pretty much standard. So the expectation is that you have a 3.0 or above cumulative average in order to graduate. And so, that can kind of fluctuate across all of these, but the importance is that you have at least a B cumulative average. So getting an A is not guaranteed. Some of you all coming in here are super duper 4.0 people all the way through, high school and college, and you've never not had an A. And you may have A's all the way through. We definitely have students that do that, but just know that this is not kind of undergraduate 2.0. This really is a new level of standards and expectations for all of you. If you have any questions about this, feel free to follow up. There's a little bit more detail in your syllabus. I already mentioned the writing resources, so just know when I do grade your writing, I'm also focused on things like grammar, punctuation, sentence structure, organization. The frameworks piece we'll talk about really does help to focus on organization, and we will get into that. Okay, so I want to go ahead and review the CTEs in more detail. There is a huge amount of information. I hope that all of you all have read and reviewed on Canvas. So this is just kind of a little brief snippet about the CTEs. So just know that there are exemplar CTEs posted. There are other instructions. There are other There's a grading rubric that has been posted as far as the one that's graded. And there is also a note on there about kind of how to write a strong CTE. So you only have 300 words. It's not very many, but you really don't need any more. That's actually more than I used to give students. Used to give students 250 words. So you've got a little wiggle room there. I was hoping to decrease some stress with that addition or that change. So because the CTEs, and again, we're focused on the ones that are not graded, but this does apply to the one that is graded as well. But the goals of the weekly CTE are two things: to address the question that is posed and to demonstrate that conclusively that you have read and understood the readings. So a lot of students do really well with, throwing all the vocabulary words in there, throwing all the concepts in there, and I can really tell that they've read the material. But I can't tell if they've really understood it because they haven't applied it to addressing the question in the, that's listed for the CTE. That's, specific to, heritable risk having to do with adoption or traumatic brain injury or, one of those other kind of real world examples that I talk about. And so it winds up being really out of balance. And so you have to keep in mind that you really want to keep that balance between actually answering the question and, so critically thinking about that question and then critically thinking about the material and how to weave those things together seamlessly. That's really where that application piece comes in and how you can really know how well you understand it. I invite you all to try to write your first CTE on your own prior to reviewing the exemplars, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with going ahead and looking at the exemplars first. That's why they're up there. That's why they've been up there for a while. So again, lots of instructions. And so you do not have to turn in your CTE that you complete on a weekly basis. You do not have to turn it in. You're welcome to chat about it in your groups informally. But it really is there for your support. And then as we have class, like starting in 2 weeks on September 11th, when we have our Unit 2 class, because you will have completed your CTE prior to our class that evening, you will be able to participate in the discussion in a more meaningful way and understand kind of where your questions are and where your points of clarification that are needed. So that part is really important. 15% of your grade is based on the critical thinking, the weekly critical thinking exercise that you choose to submit. You only have to submit one. Again, there's a rubric and lots of instructions online about this. And that's pretty much it. You get to pick one of these. I give you the list of CTEs that is posted last week or the week before, and the due dates. So you know in advance which CTE applies to which unit and when they are due. The due dates for the CTEs will not change, and they are listed in the course outline on your syllabus and on Canvas. They're always due the next day following class. So for example, Unit 2 CTE, because Unit 2 is, we have class, and that, pretty much the date of that is September 11th. So then it's due the following day, September 12th at 11:59 p.m. There is a link for you to submit your CTE under the assignments tab, and that is now live. So you can submit that whenever you like. The CTEs are subject to the late assignment policy outlined in your syllabus. So for example, you cannot choose to submit your CTE for Unit 2 in October because you can't, according to the policy. So you have to kind of know in advance which one you want to shoot for. If you happen to miss it, you can submit a day late or something like that, but I think you can't submit it after 3 days, something like that. So just pay attention to that policy before you submit if you can't submit it on time. Let's see. Are there any questions about this? I know this part can be a little confusing, so.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hi. So when you're saying the due dates for the CTE is for the one that we're going to submit. So for instance, say I don't want to submit Unit 3. I would not do anything on Canvas with it. Is that right?
That is correct. You would you would attempt to write the CTE on your own as a matter of your kind of weekly learning opportunities. You can consider writing those CTEs each week as studying for your quizzes. It also really, all of that kind of goes together because you're going to have covered your vocabulary. You're going to have kind of distilled the main points for each week out of all of those readings and all of those videos and everything. You're going to really distill that into that CTE. And so that's really going to inform and help you study for those quizzes. And those quizzes are cumulative in the sense that they cover more than one unit. So writing, kind of staying on top of that each week, the intention is that will help you do better on the quizzes as well. But you do not have to turn in your CTE each week. You simply have to know that you have to turn in one, and you will only have the opportunity to turn in one. Another thing is you can't, and when I say turn in, I mean submit under the assignments tab on Canvas. You don't email them to me, you don't anything like that. Everything goes through Canvas. And you cannot say turn in the CTE for Unit 4, and then when you get to Unit 6, think that it's a really good, you really like that CTE and you want to turn that in better, or you like that one better and you want to turn that one in. You can't do that. So once you turn one in, that's it, and that's what I'm going to grade. So if you are not on mute, can you please go ahead and mute yourself? I hear pages turning. Thank you. Any other questions about this one?
I have a question.
Yes.
Yes, that's me. Okay, I thought you said that we turn in every one of them weekly. They're just not graded, but we still turn them in.
No, you do not turn them in. You just complete them.
Okay, and so we don't do anything with them. We just keep them.
Yes, you just keep them, and simply the act of doing them, you will know kind of where you stand for that in your understanding of that week's material. So you do not submit them. You don't turn them in each week. You just do them, and then it helps you to prepare for class, and it helps you to study for your quizzes.
So then we wait until the end of the semester and choose one and give it to you, right?
No. You follow what it says in the instructions posted on Canvas, and you follow the course outline, and you pick the due date for that CTE. Okay. There's two reasons for that. One of them is somewhat self-serving, I admit, but it's very important. It helps me serve you, is that I can't have 80 papers turned into me at once and turn those around in any sort of timely manner. So I've given you the option to, pick which ones. I'm not telling you have to do the CTE for Unit 3. I'm not telling you have to do the CTE for Unit 7. I'm just simply saying, here's all the information. You pick which one you want to do, and you pick, but whichever one you pick, there is a deadline. There is a due date for that particular one. So if you know you are really, really interested in early childhood and you really like the CTEs, because y'all have the list of all the CTEs already, so you can look at that list. You can say, you know what, that sounds really interesting, and I know that I'm really I kind of geek out on early childhood, so I'm going to shoot, that one's going to be my goal. I'm going to make sure I do an extra great, special job on that. Well, because it says it on the course outline, that the early childhood CTE is due on October 24th. So you have to get that CTE submitted on Canvas under the assignments tab by October 24th. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I have a question.
Yes.
Make sure I heard you correctly, because on your CTE, the first CTE is the one that's due on September 12th, correct? That's the first one?
That's the first one. That's just, it's due. If you want to get that one done and you want to submit it, you want to get it out of the way, it's due by September 12th.
Okay.
You just want to make sure that you do it and you're prepared for class, and you need to have it done by the 11th before class.
I want to make sure we have anything due tomorrow next week, so I just wanted to make sure.
Not unless you're in group 1 assigned to Unit 2. Then you have your group presentation due.
Okay.
But we'll get to that. Any more questions about the individual CTEs?
I have one question.
Yes.
So I thought I read somewhere where you can't do the same CTE, like say our group is pregnancy and birth. Can I not do the CTE for that one, or is that off limits if I'm assigned to that group?
Yes, that is correct. Great question. Yes, that's correct. So the reason for that is I don't want you double dipping on all your work. I want you to kind of spread it out a little bit. The one good news is, I would say, if you're assigned to, let's say you're first up to bat and you're assigned for Unit 2, genetics and epigenetics, that's your group presentation, and all the group assignments are posted. I did revise one last little thing, and I added one student that emailed me yesterday about it, and fixed that, but that should be good. Hopefully, unless somebody drops, there won't be any more changes to the group assignments. But let's just say you're up to bat for Unit 2, and you are going to be presenting live during class in 2 weeks on September 11th. You do not have to do your individual CTE, or I would recommend that you don't do your individual CTE for that week unless you just want to for your own, which then I totally support. But you don't have to do your individual CTE and that group presentation piece, because pretty much the group presentation, it's all based on the same CTE. So you're pretty much doing the CTE together as a group. So I don't want to stress you out by asking you to do the individual one for that week as well. So there's that piece.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions about this? Okay. Good questions. All right. So dive a little deeper into, wow, we are running out of time. We're going to go all the way straight up to 7. The group presentations are worth 20% of your grade. Again, as I mentioned, the group assignments are already up and posted for you. You are responsible for developing with your group a 15 to 20 minute presentation that's on that CTE question, and to lead the class. If it's live, you'll post a challenge question or some kind of activity or discussion point for the group. That piece of it is integrated into that 20 minutes. So it's not you do your teaching exercise for 20 minutes and then you have a class challenge. All of that needs to be, with the time limit of 20 minutes. So if you are live and you're scheduled to go on a date that is live, then that's what you'll do. If you are scheduled to go on a date, like say for Unit 5, pregnancy and birth, which is October 2nd, we are not live that day. So you will post your teaching, your handouts, your PowerPoint, whatever you creatively choose to develop. You will post that via the discussion board, and then you will be able to pose your challenge question to students online, and y'all can respond in line within that discussion board. All the discussion boards are now posted, so you should be able to see them under the discussions tab online. One other thing that I did not include in the instructions, but I want to make sure that I say here, is if you're going live and you see here it says you have to have a copy of the PowerPoint or handout for your instructor. So instead of emailing that to me, what I did is I just went ahead and posted a discussion board for your group. And so you can go ahead and post a copy of your handouts and PowerPoint on the discussion board, just so everybody has a copy of it. And if folks want to continue to respond and further the discussion online, even though we have a discussion live, y'all are welcome to do that. It's your class. Let's see what else about that. So in your 15 to 20 minutes, what you should include is an analysis of the CTE question, just like you would do if you were writing it. You want to make sure you're integrating unit concepts and vocabulary. You can do this as creatively as you want to. Each member should speak at least once. And then you can choose how you do this for your live session. For your session that you post, which ideally is going to be I think I outlined this pretty well in the instructions, but is that you want to record your lectures. So you can do that via Zoom. You can maybe do that via Prezi. I'm not sure. The only thing I don't want you to do is a voiceover. I want to make sure that I can see everybody in that, and you should be able to find a way to do that. If you need some technological support, you can contact OIT or ask me, but typically your Zoom account should enable you all to do recording just like I'm recording this, and you can screen share and kind of have your whole presentation and then unshare and you know, make sure that we can see your face when you're talking. Let's see. You want to be able to integrate the frameworks perspective, which I'm going to hurry up and get to, so that makes more sense, which includes that perspective for our purposes. It's very broad, includes many different things, but for our purposes, the goal is to integrate the metaphor and an explanatory chain for organization purposes. You want to include image descriptions for any images used in PowerPoints or handouts, and there is a link to a resource that explains what image descriptions are. So if you have a picture or you use some kind of image, you want to make sure that you include an image description to be inclusive for all of your students. And you want to include a question or activity for full class participation. So again, you know, for live, you'll be able to do that with students live, but if you're gonna post your recorded lecture or you know, you'll be able to do that via discussion board for folks to respond to just in the discussion board. Okay, I may not have been very articulate about that, but hopefully that makes some sense. There are more detailed submission instructions on Canvas. There is a grading rubric. I'm a huge fan of rubrics. So you have a grading rubric for you to review for both the individual CTE and the CTE presentation. They are similar, but they're somewhat different. So make sure that you're paying attention to the correct one for the correct assignment. And you will get a group grade for the group presentations unless there is something really significant that goes on that it doesn't work very well, or somebody's not pulling their own weight or something like that. I'll address that individually. But typically you will receive a group grade. And then finally, and this part is, I'm really, this resource, I'm so excited to be able to offer to you. It's new to Canvas. We used to be on Blackboard and did a full migration a few months ago. So this is the first time I've been able to offer this benefit to you all. But under the collaborations tab, I have created, or I will create if they're not yet up, I will create a collaboration document for your group. So it will be, I will assign it to the group members in your group, and you will be able to basically house all of your collaborative material. It's essentially a Google Doc. It is a Google Doc. You don't have to have Google to access that. You should be able to get to it through your UTK, but contact OIT again with any issues there. But this will hopefully save you so much time. Prior to this, online students were sorting through, 50 emails a day with their group members, trying to update drafts of things and all kinds of stuff. So by having it embedded into Canvas, and only the folks who are assigned to that can see it. So, I mean, I can see it, but I'm not really going to monitor it unless there's, any kind of issue. It's really your space for you to use. So just know that whatever you put in there, other students can't see. Only the students that are in your group can see. So it's a great place to develop an outline for your presentation, to put, resources and, APA citations and all kinds of stuff, so that you don't have to sort through emails and figure out, how you're going to do all that. Everything is there for you. So very excited about that. I think that's pretty much all I have to say about the group presentations. Are there any questions? Wow, I must have done a really good job of explaining that, because there are no questions, or either that or my audio went out.
I have a question not really pertaining to groups, but just about quizzes. I was just wondering what format the quizzes would be in and if they would be timed.
Yes, great question. So I have the basic instructions for the quizzes posted up already. What is not yet posted, but what will be posted as the first quiz is up and for each subsequent quiz, is every time before you open a quiz, you will know what units it covers, which you already know that because it's on the course outline. You will know how much time you have. Typically, you will have way more time than you need because a lot of students have test anxiety. I have test anxiety, especially as it relates to the clock. So it stresses me out and I just don't see the need for it. I don't feel like it adds anything. So typically you will have more time. If you have an accommodation through ODS, you'll have even more time. If that's what the accommodation warrants. And let's see, you will know how many questions. So are there 10 questions? Are there 20 questions? You'll know that in advance. And then you can just know they're always multiple choice, or you might get a couple of true false, but for the most part, they will be multiple choice. Typically, they will all appear all at one time, and you will be able to kind of answer one, or then if for some reason you need to go back and change something, you can do that. But the one thing that you cannot do, or there's two things you absolutely cannot do. Number one is work with other students. They're obviously going to be open book, open note, all that kind of stuff, open internet, open Canvas, but you can't work with other students. And the other thing you can't do is you cannot start the quiz and then close it and then open it up at another time. Once you open that quiz, whatever happens while you're doing that is what will get recorded. So you need to make sure that you allow yourself enough time. So for example, if you have 2 hours for the quiz, but you know that the quiz deadline is at 11:59 on that Sunday, but you start at 11, at 11:59, it's going to close out and it will literally kind of shut down and you won't have access to it, and whatever you've done will be submitted. So make sure, that's why I give you the time frame, that's why I give you the due dates and all that stuff in advance so that you can schedule how you need to make sure that you have enough time.
If we have like a technical difficulty, say maybe my power goes out or something like that, and it shuts me out of the quiz, can I just email you about that and have it reopened? Or
yes, that's a great question. There are instructions that address specifically that issue listed under the quiz instructions module. And what they say is they say to contact the OIT help desk and get a ticket. Because a lot of times they can see on the back end kind of what happened, and then email me and let me know you have contacted them, and provide whatever documentation you can to support your technological problem. And then if all of that checks out, I will be able to reset your quiz, and I will give you a very, very specific window. You will not get another 2 weeks. It will be something that you have to address, pretty immediately, like within the next, 24 to 48 hours. And, but I'll be able to set that up, just for you specifically. But that's another reason why it's important to kind of not wait until the last minute. And hopefully, since I'm giving you even more time for the quizzes, that won't be a problem. But I do know that sometimes things come up, power goes out, entire cities get flooded. We know that sometimes, life happens. So I like to be, reasonable with that, but reasonable within reason.
I have a question. Mm-hmm. Okay, on the syllabus, it still says that the quizzes are due on a Tuesday.
Yes.
So if they're not due on that Tuesday, they're due on the following Sunday?
Yes, and so for your ease, I have posted a revised course outline. I cannot revise the syllabus specifically, but I can revise the course outline, and so I have posted that under the syllabus tab on Canvas, and I just posted that right before class. And it says sections 003, 005, and 009, and y'all are all on the same schedule, so that should be available to you.
Okay.
So yes, you're right. It does still say that in the syllabus, but I've posted the new outline. Any other questions? what we will focus on now is our frameworks information. So this will be the last part that we will cover for the lecture tonight. As I mentioned earlier, the rest of it is really a summary for you, for your benefit, for all of the required readings. And tonight was really about the kind of laying the groundwork for the expectations for the class. So one thing, well, actually, you know what I'm going to do? Ooh. Okay. Yeah, I missed a slide. Okay. So I want to talk about the Frameworks Institute, and what is really important about this piece of the puzzle for this course is that a lot of the material that you are going to cover is very jargony, it's, for lack of a better word. It's scientific, it's dense, and it's not, it's really, really critical to your understanding. We will kind of do as deep a dive as we have time for with things like epigenetics and, brain development, things like that. But when you are applying that information, both in your assignments and really out in the real world, because you're only in school a limited time. So why are we even talking about this stuff? It's really important that you have a strong understanding for how to communicate this very dense information. And there is an institute called the Frameworks Institute that hopefully you all will become very familiar with through this program if you are not already. And their entire existence, their entire mission is to study and apply communication science. In particular, it is for policy initiatives around human behavior, children and families, older adults. They cover just a number of different, basically, social issues, pretty much what they cover. And they, through their extensive research in this area, have developed metaphors that are highly applicable across different, basically the general public. So everybody from parents to congressmen. So these metaphors I have integrated into our course because they flow seamlessly to our basically to our required concepts like neurophysiology, child development, brain development, epigenetics a little bit. There are just a huge amount of information that they cover. And so I am bringing this in because when you are, let's just take epigenetics, I can't keep on doing it. Let's just take epigenetics, for example. So when you learn about epigenetics, you are going to learn things like the intergenerational transfer of epigenetic information through histone modification and DNA methylation. But you're really not going to talk about that in that way using those terms when you're talking about the importance of developing a healthy parent-child interaction within a unsafe and violent neighborhood. Or you're really not going to be talking about all of those things in that way. And so these metaphors and the research from the Frameworks Institute is a really good way to figure out how to frame and how to discuss this really complex information in a effective way. So in order to show this, I am going to play a video for you all very quickly. I can figure it out. Okay, so many of you may have checked this out already, so we'll go, it's just a few minutes, so we're going to go ahead and watch it together and chat about it really quickly.
child's development as a scale that has
Can I have captions, please?
A child's scale is placed in a community and has spaces on either side where experiences and environmental influences stack up over the course of development. One side gets stacked with negative factors like stress, violence, and neglect, while the other side gets loaded with positive factors like supportive relationships, skill-building opportunities, and community resources. In the same way that the weight on a teeter-totter affects the direction it tips, the factors that a child is exposed to affect how they turn out, the outcomes of their development. But the way that the scale tips and the outcomes a child experiences is also a function of the position of the scale's fulcrum, which is like the genetic makeup of the child. The position of the fulcrum affects how the scale responds to factors that get stacked on either side and how easily it tips. We know that fulcrum starts in different places for different children, and that this genetic starting point is an important factor in how a child responds to experiences and how they turn out. We also know that the position of the fulcrum isn't fixed. It's a sliding set point. Over time, the things that load and tip the scale can actually shift the position of the fulcrum. There are points in human development when this fulcrum is easier to shift. During these shiftable periods, our biology can be changed, making us more or less able to withstand negative weight that gets stacked on the scale. One of these shiftable periods is early childhood, and another is adolescence. That's why it's so important to make sure that children have positive experiences, especially early on, and to continue positive supports throughout development. By providing positive experiences during these sensitive periods of development and offloading negative weight, we can shift the fulcrum, making children more able to bear the weight of negative experiences later on, making them more resilient. So resilience isn't just about individual children. It's about the environments and experiences that get stacked on the resilience scale. Resilient societies are those that figure out how to stack more positives than negatives onto the children that will become workers and citizens.
Okay. So as you can see, this video and this metaphor was developed in collaboration with the National Scientific Council on the Developing Child and with the Center on the Developing Child at Harvard University. Both of those are excellent resources if you have not checked them out yet, and I do have some links online for those as well. So a few questions for you all is about that video is what are some, we'll just do this pretty quickly, but what are some of the concepts that you saw covered in that video as it relates to your readings and the content for this unit?
Hi, I don't know how to get my face up here, but I noticed as I was doing the reading, it seems like some of the same phrases were coming up, and one of the phrases was resilience. Mm-hmm. And the resilience was to, I wrote down, adapt to allostasis. Mm-hmm. Let's see, so I noticed that kept coming up, and then also the phrase of the ACEs. Mm-hmm. It seems like depending on some things that could happen prenatally that could affect the child, but also from the different readings, it seems like it's not a guarantee that a child will or won't have resilience just because of a certain environment. They seem kind of like everything's here I am. It seems like everything is kind of like dependent on the person, but for me it was resilience that kept coming up as a phrase.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Who else would add to that? What are some other
They also talked about the importance of the caregivers in early childhood or infancy, and I guess about how, how the social environment is just as important, and social environment to kids anyway, and how it helps them develop that resilience and deal with issues and all that growing up.
Absolutely. That is absolutely correct. And it's something that we will cover over a number of units, not just this this one in particular. So excellent. Yes. Let's do one more. What's another concept that you saw? Even specific to unit one. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, my comment was a little bit different. It was something that I didn't see, but I think it's subtly there, but it's not spelled out. And they talk about the different contributors to resilience, but the one thing lacking is the word perspective, because the mind and the perspective of the situation is what is going to determine whether that individual thinks that something is traumatic or not. So that's something that is built through an individual's lifetime of the experiences and the people around them. And so that's kind of the part that's implied, but they don't spell it out that clearly of, two people can witness the same event and only one of them is traumatized. So it's not necessarily as simple as the brain being the organ of adaptation, because, if two people inhale toxic substances, their lungs will be affected the same way. But if two people are in a situation, their brains might not necessarily be affected in the same way because they might have different perspectives, and that's going to affect their biochemistry.
Yeah, I think that's a really excellent point. And I think it's something to, think about and continue to, question. And I think that the resilience scale is specific to, what they chose to include in a 2-minute period. And you're right, it doesn't necessarily, the goal of that video wasn't really to focus on individual variation. It was to focus on how individuals are affected by the environment, and it basically puts it out there in a way that many people can understand. And even your example, I think you bring up a lot of good points, and we'll definitely talk about that with the stress unit, is that we can all experience sort of, it's never really the same thing, but we can witness a similar event, but it's going to affect us very differently. Even including, like you mentioned, the lungs or the toxic substances. You can have, even people's, lungs are going to be different because of their genetics, and because other, epigenetic factors may, interplay, how their body interacts with that substance. And that's definitely something that we will talk about in the pregnancy unit, about how toxic substances affect women differently as babies are developing. So I think that's an excellent point to consider. So
would that also be like the allostatic overload, or like, what was that, when they get too much building up over time, like two individuals?
I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Can you speak up a little?
I'm sorry. The allostatic overload, where two individuals could experience the same thing, and yet someone may already have so many things that have been building up in them that even though it was the same experience or trigger, you could say that one was already so overwhelmed that it just overtook them, where the other one did it.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, one of the ways they talk about that is through that, idea. Here's my little teeter-totter and my finger's a little fulcrum here, is, where that fulcrum is pretty much your genetic makeup, and how the environment, kind of affects that, can actually change over time. And a lot of people think that, genetics are static. And so, but they're really not. They're really going to change because of our epigenome. And so how those, negative consequences or positive, protective factors, that's going to help influence, where our fulcrum sits, within the environment, and how it is able to process a lot of that information comes in. And a lot of that basically is the whole allostatic load piece, which is something we'll definitely dive more into under Unit 4. So good. Good, excellent. So can you see just from this one example how this, 2-minute and 50-second video covered environmental impact, covered healthy development, covered a very large scope of information about the environment, how we're responsible for developing a society that supports healthy growth and development of our children. It covers, so many, stress and, risk and protective factors. It covered so many different things, but it never used the word epigenetics. It never used the word allostatic load. It never used those kind of more, those are technical terms, and they're very, very, very important to learn. And I'm not suggesting under any circumstances that you don't learn them. I'm simply putting it out there that there's no point, I believe, in what I've seen in practice, that if you know all these big words, if you know all these concepts, but you don't know how to communicate them effectively to the population that you are talking to, which may be survivors of domestic violence, it may be policymakers, it may be parents of young children who are in low-income neighborhoods. If you don't know how to communicate that information effectively, it's just as if you don't even know it. So it's just as important to understand it as it is to learn how to communicate it. So that's one reason I'm very excited to integrate this piece into this course. And since we only have 5 minutes left, I want to make sure that I jump into, I'm going to screen share again. I want to jump into the piece about explanatory chains. And using a strong explanatory chain, think about this as not something in addition to, this is not over and above you integrating the use of the metaphors into your either individual CTEs or your group presentations. This is about a way to organize the use of those metaphors, or even organize the use of just integrating the concepts from the course. It's a way to think about communicating this information to, the general public, and to, or even kind of honing it into whatever your specific audience is. So strong explanatory chains, they spell out the connections of underlying causes and visible problems. They take a few steps back from the problem and focus on the symptoms that the communicator wishes to highlight. The symptoms are often, they help to connect those conditions and symptoms of the problem to their causes. It includes a consequence that is clearly problematic to the public, and it focuses on a solution that can be achieved through collective action and system change. And I'm going to show you very, very quickly a example of what this could look like as it relates to, specifically this one is about connecting diapers to health. And so it looks at a cause of an issue. So, provides a data point for, up to 14% of low-income families' income is dedicated to diapers, and what is the larger impact of that? To reduce spending. Sometimes they conserve diapers, so children may be changed less often. That causes these additional problems. See, these are all the links to the chain. Then you've got a final consequence that says, families need to increase access to health services, including emergency room visits, and it provides a solution to eliminate the sales tax on diapers to help support families and their children's health. Another example of basically the same issue is the high cost of diapers places financial strain on families and childcare providers. A really big issue with this is that childcare and early education programs require families to supply diapers, and if they can't, those children can't attend the childcare programs. Young children may then, as a consequence, miss out on valuable early learning opportunities. So when you set it up this way, you also have an opportunity to kind of extend this chain out to a group that may, from a collective impact standpoint, be interested in your cause or interested in your solution. This was actually something that was proposed in the state of California to add a $50 credit for TANF-enrolled families to use on diapers. And it was just a way that they tried to use policy to help address this issue. Just because we're running out of time, I'll go ahead and tell you I had a group earlier today. I asked them the same question, what might fill in this slot? And one student said that this issue relates to the issue of young children missing out on early learning opportunities, relates to children not being kindergarten ready, which is a really big deal. You can ask any governor in the country about kindergarten readiness, and they're probably going to have a response. At least most of them will, because metrics that we look at for success in kindergarten really translate to almost the whole rest of your life because of the importance of early learning. And so, just by, introducing that and having a point about, being early learning opportunities, leading to kindergarten readiness, all of a sudden you have, you can garner support from the K through 12 educational system, which may not necessarily have, the cost of diapers on their radar at all. But all of a sudden, they are really, really interested in your cause. So this is just one example of how you can kind of put all of those pieces together in support of your presentations. So I'm very sorry, we have 1 minute left. So in our very last minute, I know I ran through that really quickly, but are there any other questions or comments about this info? All right, well, I will see you in 2 weeks. I hope that you have a happy Labor Day. And if the group who is presenting on September 11th has any questions, please feel free to email me, and I can potentially schedule a meeting with you to chat or answer any questions via email. But I look forward to seeing you all in a couple weeks.
Dr. Steckel.
Yes.
I have a quick question before we go. Can I email you and set up a time to do a Zoom?
Yes, we'll do that.
Okay. All right.
I have a question. Where do we look to see who's the first group?
Oh, so that's all listed under the CTE module. You'll see the list of the CTEs. You'll see the list of groups. And you can just line those up. It says the unit, it says the date, and it says the group members. So that is all there. If you have any other questions.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Yes, if you're still on, it looks kind of like that. It's hard to see, but so that is online. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, and feel free to email me with any questions at any point, and I will see you all soon.